Om Shanti. Welcome to everyone, and I'm sure we're going to have a very wonderful evening. And I'd like to introduce our three panelists. So starting with, on my left, is Deacon Jan Sutton, who's the head of chaplaincy at Loughborough University. And then we have Sudesh Didi, who's our European director of the Brahma Kumaris, and really a sort of the pillars of our institution. And then we have Andrew Pettit, a head teacher and also now a strategic lead for behaviour in his Academy Trust. So the topic we have today is care, share and inspire. And this is a very informal discussion, so we like to make it as easy as possible for everyone. So it's not an interrogation. Everyone, I hope, will contribute from their own different perspective. So my first question to the panelists, and it is, what is self-care? So think about care, and we often use this word, but what is self-care? So who would like to start? Please feel free.
Om Shanti. Good evening. Welcome. Self-care. Generally, when we say self-care, certainly we think of our physical needs. Caring health. But in fact, when you are asking self-care, a question comes in mind. When I am caring myself, self is caring whom? Little bit deeper I want to go in this. One is that I caring myself of what the need of the self are. The needs of the self, it can be food, it can be health, it can be the facilities that for comfort, physical, visible care, which perhaps others can also care for me. But when self-care is, I think on a different level, that it is caring what really helps me to care my physical body, my physical need, my emotional need, my social needs. And that is actually caring myself, that I respect the original eternal qualities of myself. It looks philosophy actually, the language, but I want to little bit go deeper in it. Because it is when I want to care, it is attention is there is some kind of satisfaction, inner happiness, some support. And so caring in a situation when my mind remains stable, calm, cool, then I am able to actually care myself. Because if I get upset, for example, my physical need is there, actually it's a very interesting, just 5 weeks ago, I had a good opportunity to self-care with the care of others, definitely support of others, of my shoulder. I had a fracture. I was walking, and we had a nice big house in London, a roof, and suddenly tripped over. So, salutations to the Mother Earth, straight away. Anyway, now, actually by chance, Sasha, one of the brother in IT department, he also walks at the same time. And he said, Didi, what happened? Actually, by the time I got set up like this, and I say I did salutations to the Mother Earth. He said, shall I call? I said, emergency. I said, no, just call 2 sisters, then I can get away. And certainly had to go to emergency. And as soon as I went there, certainly, it was fracture and they offered me a garland. You know what garland means? A sling. And so I thought, now I came back home with a garland. And now, I go from one house to the other, one place to other place for service. And so I felt now I have to sit here. So I wanted to care that this is fractured bone, but I have to keep here myself. And I thought, whoever came and asked, I say I substituted the Mother Earth, solution to the Mother Earth. She offered me a garland, and now I'm sitting in a temple in my room. Whoever comes, I share good wishes, and we give toli, we go some prasad, some sharing. So it was caring, self-caring, in a sense that, of course, I have to have rest. I have to definitely take care of it, because I have to follow the discipline of keep this garland day and night. But at the same time, I care that I don't lose this, because shoulder will not take care of myself, my body. Of course, all my brothers and sisters, family, doctors, contacts, they are taking care. But I take care that I don't give worry to anyone. So it was like care. My responsibility is that I take care. So self-care means I kept my cool, I kept my detached observer of this. The machine is out of order, but this system has to remain careful. So it means I keep my peaceful state of mind and inner happiness. Not using the word fracture. I never used the word fracture. I thought it was always thought of this garland, and after 4 weeks, certainly it's good. It was a positive. But self-care means care with positive energy, care with loving energy, care with good wishes for yourself. And when there is good wish for the self, you are able to have good wishes for yourself. So it's the tolerance, but it's not tolerance. It is acceptance. Accepting the situation. So in this way, it is this kind of self-care. Then help is there. And then after 4 weeks, I went to check up. They say, it's quite healed now. So you can take this sling off. Use it when you have pain. And of course, I'm still using. Even this morning, I was using it. So it means caring the original, eternal, inner health of myself. So when I am healthy mind, healthy body, healthy relationships, healthy atmosphere. So self-care. Self is the soul. My self. Body is my, and self is me. So I care of my body. So this is for me self-care.
Thank you, Didi. Andrew, I suppose as a head teacher, you have responsibility looking after and caring for other teachers and hundreds of school children. So how do you define self-care?
Well, I think, and thank you for sharing that beautiful example, because I think there was something really rather poetic in what you just shared there for us this evening. In as much as teachers, as educators, one of the things that we recognise all too frequently is that our students, and perhaps also our colleagues as teachers, as members of staff, one of the things that we seem to have lost sight of is what was so beautifully rendered just there with that notion of that garland of self-respect. And the idea of self-care, I think, really rests upon this idea, this concept of self-worth. And that begins with, and self-belief, and that for me begins with self-value and self-respect. And I suppose what that then begs is the question is, well, where does that sense of self-belief and self-respect actually come from? You know, in a world, in an environment which is so noisy, with so many different voices telling us how we should see ourselves, how we should present ourselves, how we should be thinking about ourselves, and indeed how we should be talking about ourselves. I think self-care from an education point of view really has to centre upon the ways in which we help our young people recognise their true selves, and to help equip them with the facility to be able to talk to as well as about themselves in a genuinely positive and authentically honest way, not through the lens of somebody else's opinion, not through the lens of what somebody else might be expecting them to say or do, and that can manifest itself in all sorts of different ways. I mean, in the introduction, Parmjit referenced my role in schools as having a strategic overview of behaviour, and absolutely that's a critical part of my role, but actually extends into character education and developing the individual, and developing the individual sense of themselves, and that really arises not just from my own passion, but from a growing sense in education of a need for something so much more than preparing young people for academic success, and preparing young people to be able to face and indeed to tolerate, but also to embrace the future, I suppose embrace the future in their own terms and on their own terms. So self-care to me from an education point of view, I think comes right back to that sense of self-value and self-respect.
Jan, you've been very much in demand, especially because of this pandemic, and you've had to interact with a lot of people who are going through for a very difficult time, especially bereavement. So how and what does self-care mean to you?
Well, self-care means to me, if I read scripture, if I read the Bible, we are told, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. So if I fail in loving myself, I can't give that care and that love to anyone else. So it's very important for me to find ways of loving myself. And it's not always easy to, it is a challenge sometimes to say, how do I love myself? But in loving myself, I respect myself. I try to be an example to those who I'm caring for, in that if I'm not eating sensibly, I won't be giving myself the fuel to be able to care for myself or for others. Sleep, exercise. So I do try to live by example, you know, and I also credit this to my grandma. You know, grandmas have got lots to answer for, and my grandma would always instill in me, you know, how to care for others. And in order to care for others, there must be a genuine love for humanity, for the earth, and for everything that is in your life.
I just want to take it a little bit further, because we talk about care, and many of you've shared your own personal stories where you're actually involved. But we keep saying care for the self, I, my. Who is this I? I need to understand a bit more about this. How do you see yourself as, you know, who is the one that's called Jan?
How do I see myself? I see myself as me. There is nobody else quite like me. And within me, I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a chaplain, and a sister and a daughter. And
I think that's a very interesting question, because what you're telling me is like there's a lot of roles that you're playing. So
there's a lot of parts of me. There's a lot of facets to who I am. It's not just one single. You know, I haven't got to just think of, oh, I'm Jan, and I think what I'm trying to say is I'm different to other people in my life. You know, to my sons, I'm their mother. To my husband, I'm his wife. To me, I'm just me.
Well, I must say, I pick up a lot of positive vibrations from you.
Yeah.
I think you come across a very positive person. So, Andrew, how do you see yourself then? Because you told me that you have a lot of responsibilities, but I'm just trying to address the question. You know, who is the real me, this self?
Yeah, and I think that's a really fascinating question. And as part of my role, I've had the opportunity very recently to be exploring some more research with regards character and how we define character, how we define virtues, and that necessarily involves asking questions about, well, what is the self, and who am I? Essentially, I had the privilege of exploring the thinking of ancient Greeks and more recent psychologists and philosophers, moral philosophers, social psychologists, and what's really interesting is there's a continuous reaching after a kind of definition, if you like, of who we are. And in the time that I've been familiar with the work of the Brahma Kumaris and Raja Yoga in particular, one thing that I keep coming back to is the notion, I think, if it doesn't sound like I'm having some kind of out-of-body experience, that actually this is a costume, and that I play a role, and Andrew is a role that I'm playing at the moment, and there are many different facets to that role, whether that be as head teacher, as behaviour lead, as father, a husband, whoever. And I think there's a real risk, actually, in the kind of 24/7 culture that we, I think, ascribe to and we almost allow to happen and encourage, that we allow ourselves to get lost in all of those different roles and all of those different identities. But for me, and although there are days where I question even whether I exist in any way, shape or form at all in between everything else, the bit that I hold on to is the belief that I'm a soul. And that soul doesn't carry with it a name. It doesn't carry with it the name Andrew. It doesn't carry the title head teacher or father or husband. But there is something within me that exists in spite of or beyond that identity.
Thank you. Didi, you've been practicing this meditation for well over 60 years, and you must have sort of contemplated this riddle of who am I. What have you discovered about your own identity? Who are you?
When we use this word I, many times daytime during the day, we use the word my, I and my. And when I say my, then certainly I must be something different than it's saying my body. For example, my nearest and dearest and constant companion, I would call it life companion, is my body. Because I am here and my body is here. And so, by coming to this knowledge, the first question was, actually I was searching this. Even at my young age, I like to understand these kind of things. And so, what it is that is saying my body? I never say, I head is aching, I leg is broken, I is pain. So it means I am not this I, but who am I? And this is my, so I is saying my. And second type, I think, and this my always remains my. It's so close to me, but it is not me, it's my. I don't say me, but sometimes we've started saying me. Second type of my say my relatives, my mother, my sister. So I can share that relationship. My mother is the mother of my sister and brother as well. But my body is my body, my hand is my hand. If somebody's leg is broken, I cannot say, please borrow my leg and walk around. I can have mercy for someone. I cannot say, I'm going to sleep for 4 hours, please borrow my eyes and go and see around the world. I cannot share this, but this physical relationship, this is second type of my. Third type of is my transferable. I have a building, I have a house, I have a business. Today I have this, tomorrow I sell it. It is not mine, it is for somebody else, someone else. And fourth type of my ideas, my opinion, my understanding. And that is what is difference between this kind of thoughts used to be in my mind. And so then I realized that I am a human being. I am a being, living being in this physical costume. So I am, and one realization was very important. I was 7 years old, my grandfather left body. And they say he's gone to long sleep. And if somebody is going to sleep long and then they take him away and that person does not come back, they put him in the fire. I used to be afraid if somebody is sleeping long, please wake up, they are going to take it away. I didn't realize long sleep means that person is gone. So realize that actually, they say the soul is gone. And I say, but we can bring that soul back. Now I asked my grandmother, what is gone? He says, the soul is gone. I say, what is that soul? And she says, it is like in your toy, you have the battery, and the battery is old, and so this toy doesn't work anymore. And I say, but we get another battery. She says, no, you cannot get another battery. Soul cannot, you get another one. And so these questions were there, and then she says, you talk too much, you think too much. You are too young to understand these things. So questions were there in my mind. And when I asked sometimes in a spiritual gathering I used to go, they always say, please don't disturb, just listen, you have to grow and then you will understand it. And when I came, because always these questions were not answered, when I came to Raja Yoga Brahma Kumaris at the age of 16, I realized that this is an education, because Brahma Kumaris, Godly University, is a spiritual university. And you are encouraged to ask questions so that you can understand yourself. And then I realized that in education cannot be with blind faith, and education cannot be with fear. And so that time, when I came and I understood I am a human being, in this human body, a living being, and that being is gone, and that is this light. That's why we say the light is gone, the life is gone. What is that light? Because we light the candle light after the person is gone. We light every year the candle in church in their memorial. So it is the inner light. It's a being of light, and that light is life. And so realizing I am a living being, which is an eternal being and metaphysical being. So this is physical. So taking care of myself is taking the physical needs, physical attention, physical clothes, from morning till evening, bathing, keep rest, keep breakfast, keep care, walking. We make a big list to keep the body healthy. Body does not take care of itself. And so we take care of our physical things, physical body and physical needs. And it is I am taking care. So I am this master of this body. So this is body belongs to me. This is my. That's why my name is Sudesh. And another thing I discovered, when we introduce each other, if I ask you, Panji, please, can you introduce yourself? What is your name?
Raman Bhai Baba.
Name. Another one? Another one? Okay, just give the examples. So my name. And then, who said my name? I said my name. Name on what? My body. Some say, I am called this and this. I am called N. I am called Neil. I am called Sudesh. I am called. So it means when children are called, what are you called? So it means the name is given to the physical body, and it is at that time it is called. It is the furniture is made with the same material, and according to the use and appearance, it's chair, same wood, this is table, this is door, it is called. So body is made of the same material of 5 elements, matter, but it is called, and then that name is given. So name is given to this body. And generally we say, I am called so and so. It means you are very detached from that. You, I, physical body. Then it's my name. We become very much possessive of my, it's my body. Of course I have to take care. My body will not take care of the body. My leg is broken, this one's leg is broken. The table would never say, please take me to the doctor. But if my leg is broken, I will go to the doctor, I will take care of it. But body itself cannot take care of it. As I mentioned, the shoulder could not take care of itself, had to be taken to hospital, doctor. And so it means, then I was realizing that this is the second step, we become conscious of my name. And later on, I am so and so. I am called Sudesh, not called, but I am Sudesh, I am Peter, I am Shukla, I am then my religion, my position, my role, my job. Others also know me with the same. So in fact that role is different and soul is different. So who am I? I am a soul. And this self-awareness of myself, this became more and more clear through this knowledge. And I started practicing, and then deeper level, which when you ask the first question, self-care, I straight away connected with that, my self-care. I am taking self-care of what the self is actually. Self is peace, self is love, self is happiness, self is benevolence, self is truth, self is purity, self is mercy. And if I take care of this, then I am safe.
Thank you for that very deep answer. Jan, you shared some of the qualities that you have in the role that you play, as you've just defined. How do you project those qualities onto others? How do you see others? When I'm talking about seeing others, I'm talking about we talked about self-care, and then that care is transferred to others. How are you seeing that? How do you see others?
I see others others come to me for different reasons, with different needs and needing different care. And I suppose I learn to see them by what they're sharing with me. People, students and staff and friends and family who come because they would like me to care for them or support them. If I don't listen, if I don't invest time, we live in a very, very busy world where time is probably one of the most expensive commodities that we've got. No one seems to have any time to give to anything, you know. Oh, I'll see you in a moment. I just haven't got time now. I've just got to get this done. So I see people, the students I meet, I just see them as people who are coming to me for some kind of support, and if they want me to sit with them for an hour before they can share with me the reasons that they're talking to me, I sit for an hour. And we look on ourselves as chaplains at the university. Well, we're not counsellors, but we are listeners. And if we've got that time to sit and listen, you learn to see more of the students that we see. And often we can just see people as the reason why they have come. So, you know, using your example, if somebody comes to me with a broken leg, we see that broken leg. Or if someone comes to me because they've got they need some care with their mental well-being, we see that. But it's important that we see a whole person. We see the person as a whole, not just as what they're presenting to us. So I suppose my answer would be I see a person as a whole, as everything that I think we've all shared. Now, you know, they're not just that broken leg, or they're not just the student who needs help with an exam. They're a whole person, and to look at a person as a whole.
Now, you're engaging with very young people who are just embarking on their, you could say, career or life, and you've got a wealth of experience. How do you sort of care for them in that situation?
Many different ways. It depends on what they're presenting to us. I mean, we've just gone through our first academic term, and students have been, like many of us, just locked up in their home, you know, for the past 14 months, and seen very few people, not been anywhere other than maybe an hour's exercise, and now they've come to university. So the homesickness set in very quickly this year. You know, we can usually say we've got 3 weeks before that sets in. So we've got the first week when they're really excited at meeting new people, being in a new place. We've got the second week where they start to study and reality starts to sink in. And then we've got the third week where they've got no clean clothes left, so they've got to start looking after themselves physically by cleaning their clothes, and they've probably got no food left, which was given to them when their parents sent them away from home. And that's when we normally get to see the first of our students coming in with that homesickness. But within hours of some of the students actually coming to the university, they were already homesick, they were already missing home, and they present with very different things. You know, I saw a student in the cafe just a few days ago, and she says, "Oh, Jan, I've been meaning to contact you and say hello." I says, "Don't worry about it. If you haven't contacted me to say hello, I know that you've settled and you've made friends, and you know you can come and sit with me and have a cup of tea with me and talk to me anytime you want. But I know that, oh, they're okay now. They've found something that has made them belong to this place. You know, so a lot of what we do as well is we talk about the Loughborough family. So the university is the Loughborough family, and we're that family away from home. So we try to look after that family how we look after our families.
Just extrapolating on this one, Andrew, is that it seems like you have to care for so many people, and they're going through a roller coaster of different emotions. How do you care for people from all walks of life, different emotions? You don't know them, so how do you deal with it?
Wow, that's a big question. I think, first of all, just to pick up on what Jan was just sharing there, I think what's really interesting is that you're encountering a lot of individuals who, at the point at which you encounter them, they're in a form of crisis. And, you know, that you say, you know, you're not counsellors, but you're listeners. And they're coming to you at points where they've reached a kind of crisis where they need to be able to express that. That feeling of fear, anxiety, homesickness, whatever it happens to be, and that's not to trivialise some of the crises that that some of those individuals will face. But I was just contemplating there, thinking, well, how does that extrapolate, for example, into a school setting? And my experience is primarily focused in secondary education. So I was thinking there of the individuals that we, if you like, parcel off into university life, not able to cook for themselves, not able to do their own laundry, and so on. And it got me to thinking that actually what we are actively needing to, and what we're certainly trying to do in our schools, is to develop in our young people the ability to care for themselves, in as much as they're not going to be as likely, not saying they would never, but not be as likely to reach the kind of crisis point, perhaps at the first next turning point in terms of their journey, or the next step in their educational experience. And it prompted me to think of some of the work that we do in our schools around mindfulness and meditation. And the reason that resonated with me as I was listening to you share there was because what we found is that by equipping young people with the sense of, I suppose it's almost a kind of self-possession, and you shared there, sister, about it's kind of almost self-ownership. We talk about our bodies as being my, and there's a possessiveness around myself and my things, but actually that tends to, in my experience anyway, tends to be rather superficial, it tends to be rather material, whereas what we need to encourage young people to do is to recognise the self within, and to give opportunities within the kind of the flurry of a typical school day or the working week, for our young people and colleagues to recognise that, to have that moment of pause, I suppose, and that moment of stillness, to give them the strength to, I suppose, encounter a situation in a way that's perhaps more detached, in a way that perhaps allows us to contemplate the nature of the situation that we face. And we work with an organisation called Bounce Forward, and they've developed a Healthy Minds curriculum. And one of the things they teach young people, it's tied up in the whole concept of resilience. One of the things they teach young people is not to listen to the gremlins, and not to catastrophize, not to always see the worst in a situation. And one of the key character strengths that we've promoted in the school that I helped to found is the strength of optimism. And I just want to share with you, because it resonated with me as I was listening to Jan talking there, an example that we often share with our students when you're helping them to understand each of the key character strengths that we're seeking as a school to try and develop and foster in them. It makes sense, doesn't it, that we want to help them get a kind of definition of what each of those strengths looks like in practice. Because it's one thing to define it in words, it's quite another thing to actually experience it, to actually live it. And the one that came to mind just there was the character strength of optimism. And an example we often share with our students, particularly when they first start with us. I was thinking in that first term, when they're just settling with us as little year sevens, never mind freshers, who perhaps haven't grown that much in between times, although they might think they have. We often share the story of, we put them in a scenario and we say to them, look, you're lost in the woods, it's got dark. And when we say dark, we mean totally pitch black. You can barely see your hand in front of your face. And before you get any ideas, you've not got your phone. And if you did have your phone, the battery's dead. So there's no torch, there's no SOS, nothing. Okay, it's just you. You might be with some friends, but it's you, those friends, and a whole lot of trees. And it is pitch black. How do you respond? What are the thoughts that go through your head at that point? Now, the pessimist is perhaps thinking in the typical way many of us would be thinking in that situation. We may be saying, oh my God, help me. We may be thinking, oh my God, I'm too young to die. I can't die in the woods. I was meant to be playing football on Saturday. They assume the worst. They catastrophize. They think that because they can't see a way out right now, there is no way out. But of course, it's a question of perspective, isn't it? Because if you look at that circumstance in a more optimistic way, you will know one thing. There's one absolute certainty in that situation. If you wait long enough, night will turn to day. And when it does, you have a whole lot better chance of navigating your way out of those woods, finding help, and going on and playing football next Saturday. So I share that as an example of just really the work that we're trying to do in schools to shift perspective, to shift thinking about the self and the situations that we might find ourselves in. Yes, because it develops resilience, the ability to cope, as it were. But more than that, because it develops a stronger sense of self and our own ability to overcome, and our own ability to see the good, to see the positive in a situation.
That's very interesting, Andrew. I like that example that, after night follows day. So it's just patience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, all three of you are very much in I would say, a caring profession or a caring area. So you're caring for these vulnerable people or people who don't have the resources to cope with life's changes. But how do you maintain your balance? How do you keep your perspective to such that you're not influenced one way or the other? I'll take Sudeshti first on this one. How do you keep your balance? Because you must have many individuals, many souls, as you say, come to you looking for help, for guidance. But how can you maintain your balance so you don't get influenced by them?
This is also my experience. I wanted to be a social worker. My college was very far. It was actually co-education. I had to go about 5 kilometers away from our village where the college was there. And on the way used to be a village where people were very, that kind of addiction, alcohol, drugs or whatever, and very poor. And I wanted to help them. And I thought I wanted to be a social worker. I wanted to help them to give the whatever the need, because I see they're shivering in the cold. So plenty warm clothes are extra at home, so give them. Sometimes give them money, and after a few days they don't have those warm clothes. Where have they gone? They sell it, drink alcohol, smoke. Then my grandmother said, that will give me dissatisfaction inside. I want to help them, they don't get help. My grandmother said, what they needed is only food. So give them food. And by chance, what happened at that time, an old man used to come in our colony, and he used to collect chapatis, rotis, no? And he would go and sell in a dhaba, in a cheap hotel, and he will also just drink alcohol and finish. And so it used to disturb me rather than happiness. And I realized that physical help is not only help. So I spoke to my auntie, and I say, I want to be a social worker, but I feel really dissatisfied. The more we help them, the more they misuse the support. They take the support, but they misuse it, or they don't care of it. And she says, you should become a spiritual social worker. I say, what does it mean? Social worker, I know this, and social carer, I know this, because in the hospital, nurses, that was also my feeling that I should serve to help people. And that was my vision, to serve what physical, visible needs are there. But in fact, social worker, spiritual social worker, and she says that, see, it is the need is if you are giving them only physical support, but you are making them dependent on you, and then you are having dissatisfaction and unhappiness rather than happiness. It is, you should give them what the soul needs, and that time I did not understand. She told me that she was living in a building where BKs were living. There was a center. I said, do you have any example where people really give the spiritual support? And she says, I see people coming with a very depressed mind, very dissatisfied, with very difficult problems. And after a few days, their face shines. What they give, it is not whatever, if somebody really needs physical support of any kind, food or clothes, or that's fine. But they need the inner power. And that is what it is with giving them their own support of their own power first. Create self-respect in them. And so that was a good insight. In order to keep the balance within the self, is not becoming emotional by weaknesses or situations, but becoming detached and observing, and then then enabling them to see their own specialities. So same is also working with in every situation. It's not only just physical sickness, worry, tension, fear, problems. Someone leaves body, someone suddenly loses a job, someone certainly faces very difficult, critical situation. And so that time spiritual need is there. And if you also become emotional with emotional person, you are not able to help them. So what is needed at that time, you have to become aware that spiritual power, sympathy, patience, acceptance, them as they are, and becoming detached from, not absorbing their situations. Otherwise you become sick.
Yeah.
And this happens with the physical carer. They absorb their pain and they begin to develop the same kind of situation. And so mercy, love, compassion, sympathy, it's not a question of that you soak all the weakness, suffering in them. You cannot then help them. So this is why keeping the connection with the highest level of the Supreme Being, God is merciful, loveful, benevolent, but ever detached. But God is bodiless, and we are in the body. So what we have to do then, at that time, using the virtues, specialities, that good wishes are important. First, feelings. We have to create merciful feeling, but with love. Only mercy is there, you will become emotional. And with knowledge that this person is going through a difficult situation, certainly something is lacking. And so that is needed. So detachment, not with attachment, not with possessiveness, we cannot help. And this happens when some problems come in the family, we become so attached with the problem. So not attached, because otherwise it is infection like. And we have to be careful that you don't, just like doctors keep them safe, no? They wanted to do operation, but they cover their whole system. So first protect yourself. And that is be soul conscious and connect with who is the healer, who is the power, where the might comes. Because doctors also say that we cure, but God heals. And so in the same way, you give them knowledge, but not expectations in the beginning. This is the secret. When we want to have expectations when we give something, it means we are losing actually the power of giving. And so becoming detached in that, beyond expectations, but good wishes for them. So 3 things will definitely help them if physical sickness is there. Of course, body is needs support, so medicine can help, any kind of medicine, whatever suits them. Good wishes, but with the detachment, connection with the Supreme Being, the Supreme Soul. And so keeping the balance that you don't forget your stability, your love, your mercy, your good wishes. And so it means when you hold the qualities, you can give them qualities. Just if they can influence, their weakness can influence, our good wishes can also support them. So giving them internal power in this aspect.
I think this current pandemic has, I would say that it's almost like there's a spiritual awakening taking place where people are beginning to realize that in order to help others, they need to help themselves. So yes, you're right. You gave the examples when doctors and nurses, they were helping these people who at the time didn't really understand what this virus was. They exposed themselves and they became infected themselves. It's only then they got the equipment, the PPE, that were able to protect themselves. So yes, they've moved on. Jan, you're in that situation, and I know we've shared many stories of what you've had to go through, but how do you keep your sense of a balance?
I think I only get out of bed on the morning because of my faith. I've got a strong faith. I belong to a religious order, and I know I'm held in prayer by that order. The prayer of others can help me, my own prayer life. And a priest told me many years ago when I was training for ministry, and it's taken me a lot of years to learn this and to use it in my own life, that people come into our lives at different stages of their lives, and we may meet someone and we may be on that same road and that same journey with them for just a few minutes or a few hours, or we may remain on that journey with them for the rest of our lives. And it could be a journey filled with happiness, it could be a journey filled with sorrow, but whatever the story of the person who is on the journey with you is, it is their story. And I would be doing people an injustice if I took that on board as my story, because it is theirs. I can walk alongside, and I can sometimes offer support and guidance and strength and encouragement, but it's not my story. It's theirs, and it's for them to hold, not me. I think as well for me, it's the love of family and friends, and the things that I enjoy doing in life. I enjoy doing craft work, and I enjoy eating, and I enjoy cooking what I eat as well. But it's about keeping physically fit as well, and this might surprise some of you, but every week I go and I do boxing. And boxing is an incredible way of really, you know, it's a release. I don't hit anyone. Please don't think I hit anyone. I just hit pads on someone's hand. But it's a way of releasing any stress that might be there. And, you know, a lot goes into your mind, and I could share stories with you going back years. Every person I think every student who I've been involved in their life at the university, I know their story, and there are times within what I do that story comes back into the forefront for whatever reason. But it, like I just said, it is their story. But it's about, you know, you've got to learn to have that time of laughter and do things that you enjoy as well. And it's the balance. It's that balance. And I think I said earlier on, if we don't show that balance and we don't show that in the way we live our lives. You know, if a student or a member of staff came to see me and sat in the office, and I'd been so utterly busy and so consumed with everything I'm doing that I'm sat falling asleep in front of them and not being my best and not giving them the attention, because at the moment that you're with someone who is looking to you for that guidance and that encouragement, they've got to feel that they're the only person on this earth, that there's you and there's them, and that you're caring for them. And if you've worn yourself down and burnt out so much that you can't do that, you're not only doing an injustice to that person, you're doing an injustice to yourself and to those who love and care for you as well. So, yeah, but the boxing's good.
I think I'm going to keep my distance now from you, Jan, just in case I say anything offensive. So I'll get this bop from her. Andrew, you must sort of work in a very insane world. How do you keep your sanity? Where's your balance coming from?
Perhaps, I mean, they say, don't they, that the truly insane people are the people who think they're sane. But I just wanted to pick up a couple of things that have just been said there, really, because I think there was a really interesting connection just associated with this idea of detachment and how you can support and nurture someone through a position of detachment, because what that means is you're helping in a way that, well, the way I see it anyway, is you're doing it in a way that's egoless. That your sense of self and your sense of satisfaction isn't drawn from their story or living their experience or indeed absorbing their feelings or their emotions or their experiences. Instead, you're in a position which is that much more detached. And one of the things that I learned very early on, which echoes what you were just sharing there, Jan, is the vital importance of being 100% present. And yes, that absolutely relies on self-care in the sense of making sure that you're not burnt out and not in a position where you can't authentically connect with that person because actually you've just got too many things on your mind, or because you're that dog-tired that you can't actually concentrate and you've possibly even forgotten your own name. But actually being 100% present, whether it's for 5 minutes, it's for 15 minutes, or it happens to be for the hour that you describe, perhaps, you know, needing to be with someone on occasion, is critically important, but can only really be achieved if you're not, and maybe this is a bit of a clumsy way of expressing it, but that you're not investing your ego in that interaction, that you're not investing yourself in that interaction, and that you're then not reliant upon the outcome of that situation, and you're not reliant upon that person then coming back to you to celebrate the way in which you might have helped them overcome that particular challenge. Instead, you're recognizing that in that particular moment that you've got a role to play, and that you can be more circumspect, and you can be more objective in the advice perhaps, or the guidance you give, or indeed actually just in listening. Because it isn't the case of telling someone what they need to go do, because, you know, who might I be to tell them that? But sometimes being that listener to help them find the solution for themselves, but to do so in a way that's egoless and detached, I think is critical. And so in sharing that, I've forgotten what your question was. It has something to do with me being insane.
What do you do to keep your sanity so you remain detached as well?
Yeah, I talk to myself a lot. I think that, do you know, there's a lot in what Jan said there about, you know, if you like, distractions, doing the things that you love and taking yourself out of, if you like, other people's situations, because you can otherwise potentially become too invested, if not detached. And distracting yourself with other activities can be a really powerful way of doing that, or so I've found. But actually, what I've found is the most powerful mechanism for sustaining myself and hopefully helping prevent myself from going insane, or perhaps I am actually the insane one, is that I found of late, over the last year or so, as I've really started to develop the practice, is meditation is something that I found works really powerfully to help me center myself and to create a real sense of stability and contentment. And in fact, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to do the Virtue Scope spin of the wheel at the beginning. If you didn't have a chance to do that, please make sure you do so before you leave, because it's really interesting what you then get back from that. Because I was quite intrigued to see that what I got back from that was contentment. And if I'd gone back maybe 18 months or so, or maybe a little bit more than that, I'm not convinced that contentment would have been my front and foremost virtue. So I think meditation is something that I've found key to me to help keep me sane, and I think that's also helped govern my relationships and interactions with others. And I feel it's probably a whole lot safer than, I read once that people in kind of high-powered or high-pressured jobs, stressful jobs, I mean, aren't we all at one point or another, tend to need pastimes, and maybe Jan's yours is one, which necessitate a high level of adrenaline, but also a high level of risk. Because only when you reach the kind of, if you like, zenith point of risk and adrenaline, does your mind actually switch off from thinking about the other things that it might otherwise be thinking about. Because you can often do an activity on autopilot and your brain can be doing overtime regardless. So, for example, cycling is something I love, but I find that if I go out for a ride, my brain is still doing overtime, and I can still be thinking a lot about the wasteful thoughts that I don't need can still be churning in my mind. Whereas in meditation, I'm able to take control of that. And I'm hoping, at least so far so good, is a whole lot more sustainable and a whole lot safer than an adrenaline-filled activity.
You mentioned in your sort of sharing ego. So what are the barriers that come in our way from finding that sort of caring for the self and others? So I'm going to take that to Sudeshti first, and then I'll ask others to sort of chip in as well. What are the barriers to self-care and caring for others?
In fact, it is, I would not say actually barrier. It's we create barrier in our own self, little bit doubt, whether others will accept or not. They might think that perhaps we need something from them, misunderstanding, wrong impression, and you don't want to rush actually to support someone, because this is, in our area, is a spiritual support, and soul should be ready to accept, to understand. And so it is just like, it is like preparing the land, that what seed of good wishes or inspiration or some kind of support is needed. They they also develop a kind of desire is there. Need is there. If you can get some healing only when there's need is there. And some people are themselves at that time so absorbed in sometimes worldly things they're satisfied. They don't need help. But really they need help, you can see. Only at the time of suffering, some situations, then they accept this. So it's not actually any barrier. Little bit hesitation is there that we should wait, have patience, have good wishes. And then right time, when the soul, what is needed, it will come, it will touch them. They will definitely receive it. But still the deep wish is that everyone should get that inner strength to help themselves. God help those who help themselves. And so to make them aware of the self, that is possible attention. And so trying to actually make souls aware what it is we want to offer. We want to offer this insight to recognize what is needed, what the soul is really looking for, what they are missing. And so for that time, I think it is a time that little bit is needed, though nothing obstructing actually, because enthusiasm is great. So I don't think that there is any kind of barrier. There's no barrier, but still hesitation. Hesitation is barrier.
I like the aspect that you talked about. That sometimes there's a little bit of doubt in ourselves, and we actually create the barriers within ourselves. So Jan, you have sort of coming into interaction, and you think, how can I help? I mean, you must have faced a lot of obstacles.
I think probably, like you, barrier's probably not quite the right word. Maybe challenge is a good word, and our own ego. It would be, so easy sometimes to try and resolve something by saying you do it this way, and putting our own, how we would resolve it, onto the person that you're seeing, rather than sitting and listening and not even always having to ask questions, but more of a coaching way where you just sit and listen, and the person who you're supporting finds those answers themselves from within themselves. And then they find a way of resolving what their issues are, and how they can be resolved. But our ego sometimes, you could just say, well, come on, just do it this way and it'll be done. And that can be a challenge, and especially in the busy world that we live in, and if you know that time is limited, and that is a challenge. Your ego can get in the way, and learning to know that your way is a way, but it's not the only way. There are other ways, and it might not have to be. It could be very different from the way you see, but it still is another way of things happening. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to change the word. So what challenges have you faced, Andrew?
I think the way I would see it is, I mean, the mantra, the quotation that's often at the bottom of your emails, Parmjit, when I change, the world changes. I think that actually says it all. The challenge or the obstacles, the barriers, whatever you want to call it, I think they do exist within ourselves. That we can all be the most generous coaches to ourselves and say, well, look, you did your run last week, you've had a tough week, let's not do it this week. Or you did the early get up yesterday, you don't need to do it today, we'll pick it up again tomorrow. We can always find, I think it's in human nature to always find an excuse, to find a reason or a justification. So I think we can ourselves, and this is where the ego comes back in, doesn't it? We can always find a reason, and we become the obstacle. We become the challenge to ourselves, I think. But actually, I was thinking about this, or kind of related to this afternoon. Obviously, anticipating coming here this evening, was helping my daughter, and she's just learning to roller skate. She's 5. And of course, she's got very sparkly roller skates. They light up and all the rest of it. But of course, that doesn't overcome the basic principle of having to balance and to learn how to use them. And after a few goes up and down the driveway, she was really starting to get it. And there were moments where there was real flow. And you could see that what was happening was that she was forgetting about the process. She wasn't overthinking it, because the moment she started to think about it again, the moment she started to actually think about, okay, now my foot's doing this, my foot's doing that, she was gone. And it made me realize that actually maybe that is our challenge. You know, that often we overthink, and by overthinking, we kind of get in the way of ourselves. So that's what I would say in response to that.
Actually, this is I love the conversation, but unfortunately, like everything else, time is a factor. And really, this final point: what inspired you to do what you've been doing? You know, has someone inspired you, and how have you kept that inspiration going? I'll start with you, Andrew.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if there's necessarily one particular person, although I guess there have been particular turning points. There have been particular things that have felt like they've channeled me in a particular direction, and channeling me into teaching, for example, is one. But I suppose what I would say, in the interest of kind of brevity this evening in answer to that question, is I'm a believer that everything happens for a reason. And I don't mean that in a kind of fatalistic, deterministic kind of way, like, you know, you don't have any free will and it's already destined that it's going to be that way. But rather that every interaction you have and every experience you have, it happens for a reason, because it's there to shape you, it's there to shape your experience, it's there to shape your understanding. Because we're always, of course I'm going to say it as a teacher, aren't I, we're always learning, but actually I feel that that's a true fact of life, actually, as human beings, you know, as individuals, we're all always learning. So if anything's shaped or inspired me, you might say, you know, the man above, but I'll be a little bit more evasive in my answer and say kind of almost everything I've been through I know has shaped me and will continue to shape me.
Thank you for that. Jan, what's inspired you?
Just life, I think. I know as when I was very young, I'd always got my head in a book or learning about the ones for like social reform, social change, and like from the age of 4, everyone thought I would become a nurse, and including myself, and that's what I thought. But then when I was 16, I met my husband, who's now been my husband for over 40 years, and I didn't want to go off to train to be a nurse, as love flew in the window. You know, all my other thoughts flew out of the window. And I went to work in a laboratory, and then the children came along, and I took the eldest child to church because he asked to go. And it was there, I thought what I was doing was a duty to my child, because I'd had him baptised into the Christian faith, and it was my duty to take him. But then my relationship with God began, and it was a relationship that was growing between me and God. And when I felt the call on my heart to train to ministry, I responded to that call. But within all of that, I've got a roll call, if you like, of all the people in my life who have influenced me along the way, Grandma being right at the very top. But even people I haven't met, people like Nelson Mandela, and people who have just inspired me by the way they've lived their lives and the way they've stood up for other people. And I believe, like my grandma taught me how to love by showing me how to love in the way she lived her life. And that's what's really inspired me, and will continue to. You know, so it's a mixture of my faith and the people who come into my life and walk that journey with me. So.
Thank you. Didi, what's your inspiration in because you've been doing it like I think for a lifetime. So what's your inspiration in doing this?
What comes from the heart, what is coming from the heart, that is touching the heart. And this is what I see, the real inner feelings express itself automatically. And so light ignites the light. And this is what it is. From here, as well as the founder of the institution of Brahma Kumaris, always making the life with life, It is easy to say, to help and support and give it, but at the time of difficulty, really jump in, right? You have to become a fire brigade, but not only fire brigade, you have to be firefighter and jump in, but you have to protect yourself before. You cannot protect yourself without putting the fireproof dress. And so in the same way, balance is there to protect the self and also support others. And inspire is that when others are able to do it, why can't I do it? And this is what it is. The life is telling, the natural enthusiasm, practical result. Message, to give somebody message, to give someone teaching, it's a different thing. To make the life of someone's life. And here I see in institution, is this women were not, especially the elderly, those who were dadis, not much education in school, not any kind of worldly experience in society, because it's always a kind of limited permission to be free. And what they achieved, where this inner energy came from. It is the practical self-confidence, self-respect. Self-respect creates the self-respect in others. Self-confidence creates the self-respect in us. Self-mercy creates mercy in others, because what quality you have. And so it was inspiration from practical life, but power came through meditation, through yoga. My determination that I want to be myself also. There are thousands that are becoming this. And so it means I can do that as well. I wanted to do, but practically it became a wonderful opportunity, inspiration. See the transformation in others. Actually, that is what was the main thing, that it's working. When you really give with honesty, selflessness, it works because you don't need anything in return. And that is real inspiration, as God is benevolent and selfless and detached from praise and defamation. That inspires you. Continue to do, that is truth. Truth will continue to work. True hope, true feeling, true good wishes. And so this benevolent consciousness of godly wish is inspiring. Continue to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to draw this discussion to a close. And so on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to thank the three panelists for sharing from the heart, matters of the heart, and also for you to coming here. But there's some things that I picked up. It's like Jen was talking about prayer. It's a faith. And you talked about meditation, keeping that sort of sustaining yourself. So I thought if we end this final session where Sudesh Jidi can take us into that experience where we can sort of connect with ourselves and maybe we can connect with the divine as well. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Om. I am. I become aware of my true self. Who am I? What am I in reality? What is the purpose of my life? Om. I am a living energy. Metaphysical being of light. An eternal being, immortal being in this physical body. I have adopted this body, my physical costume, to experience myself. Express myself, experience and share it with others. As I exist with a pure mind. I am a thinking being. As I think, so shall I become. Om. Shanti, peace. I believe my natural nature, my original self is peace. I think of peace and feel it. I believe this is my true existence, my religion, my inner strength. As I breathe in, I breathe in peace. As I breathe out, I vibrate peace. This positive energy of peace is creating and making my mind like a cool and calm lake. Still silent. Sweet silence. Deep silence. This positive and pure energy, pure thoughts, create ripples of joy in me. This peace is filled with love, with happiness. With lightness. The deeper I go in me, the lighter I feel. This lightness uplifts me. The higher I fly, feeling a magnetic pull to the source of peace. Truth. Benevolence. This truth of the self and connected with the supreme eternal truth is bliss. Ocean of peace, ocean of love. I dive deep. Fill myself with this eternal energy. My mind, intellect, understanding, and experience are in harmony. I believe all souls are eternal beings of peace. sharing peace, vibrating peace, generating peace with love, with pure consciousness of being a soul. I am a pure and peaceful soul. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Om Shanti. I feel I don't want to speak because I thought Didi take us to really a place of stillness and silence, but we have to speak. So once again, I would like to thank Jan, Sudesh Didi and Andrew for their time and sharing matters of the heart. Thank you for your honesty and transparency. I'd also like to thank all of you for coming, and as a token of our appreciation, we'd like to offer you a book. It's called 100 Years of Service. It's about our Daddy Janki, who passed away last year, and it's really her life story, and she has dedicated her life to serving humanity, as like many of the examples shared here. So we hope to get you'll receive them on your way exit, and thank you for coming, and I hope you've been sort of inspired by this, and you will share this with others as well, and we hope to see you in the very near future as well. Om Shanti. Thank you.